The man you see to the right is a man named Hermann Ebbinghaus. Ebbinghaus. You can tell by the spelling that he's German. He's a German psychologist. And he did research about memory, specifically how long we can remember things and kind of how we forget. So he did memory. And what he found, he did experiments mostly on himself, and he found that it sort of makes this curve, which we now call the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. He would give himself a big list of words, or nonsense syllables. He did different experiments where he would just, like the nonsense syllables would just be, he would put a vowel and then a random consonant, or a vowel and a consonant, or stuff like that. And so he would have these meaningless things so that he wouldn't be able to, like, make pictures in his head of, like, oh, a shoe and a cat, and then he would be able to picture, he didn't want it to have any meaning at all. He just wanted it to be sounds. So, okay, what he found, the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, is that over time, this line is time, and this line is the number of words that he remembered, number of words in quotations because they were nonsense syllables, is he would start out memorizing. Well, he would do it until he got it perfect, I think 3 times in a row or something. He would start at the peak, 100% of the words, and then over set intervals of time, depending on how long the list was and how tired he was and many other things, he would get a curve where he would quickly forget a lot of the list, and he would hold on to the same few nonsense syllables. It would kind of level out, and he could still remember some things. And so it would go down like that. So if he had a list of 100 words, he would very quickly forget, 50 of them or so, and he would just have a couple of them that he would hang on to kind of towards the end indefinitely. He would always remember a few of them. And so it has this mathematical line to it, and he can plug in, there's a constant of how strong the memory was, and that's based on his fatigue and all this other stuff. So it's kind of a useful idea to see, oh, I have this many things to memorize, and if my test is tomorrow, I'll probably remember 80% of them, but then if I'm tested on it on the final at the end of the year, I'm only going to remember 10%, then maybe I should study again, and then I'll bring it right back up, and then I'll know most of it. Sort of a general useful idea. And so that's the forgetting curve. Forgetting curve. He also came up with the learning curve, but that's for a different video. The other thing that he came up with that's interesting is the serial position effect, which I should write somewhere. Serial position effect, and this has nothing to do with what you eat in the morning for breakfast. This is serial, meaning in a series, like in order, a bunch of nonsense syllables, or even if they're actual words. And what this means is if I give you a bunch of words, if I say house, cat, shoe, street, box, book. I think you can tell I'm just looking around for random words. But if I give you almost meaningless words, none of these are very specific. If I give you a bunch of these, what the serial position effect says, is that you would be most likely to remember the first couple of words and the last couple of words. And obviously it wouldn't be sitting in front of you, but I would say house, and you would be like, okay, house, and you would repeat it once. This is one of the theories of why this happens. Well, I should say this is, the entire thing is the serial position effect, saying you remember the first and the last. But the first couple is explained by the primacy effect. I shouldn't get ahead of myself. Primacy effect. Effect. And this last part is the Recency Effect. Recency Effect. And the Recency Effect, I think, is a lot more intuitive. This is just, it's the last one that I heard. You know, the last word that you said was lamp, and so I can repeat lamp, and it's very easy. Or you know, whether it's being spoken or like flashcard situation, it's fresh in your mind. You can remember book then lamp because it was the last thing you saw. The Primacy Effect is a little more difficult, and I started to explain it here. It's when you see the word house, you think in your head house, and so you have one repetition of that. And then when you see the word cat, you say, okay, house, and then cat, and then the person says shoe, and you say, alright, house, cat, shoe, and so you can see you have 3 repetitions of house and only 1 of shoe, and then when they say street, you have 4 of house, and so you end up saying house in your mind a lot more than anything else, and that's why the middle sort of dips out. And again, we can graph this. Not if you're just asking one person, but if you ask 100 people, then you can start to make, if this is your baseline and this axis is how many they remember, house and cat are very well remembered, and well, it wouldn't really tip up like that. Just generally, it's going to be a squiggly line, depending on how memorable the words are. But it sort of levels off, and then in the middle, nobody remembers anything, and then at the end, oh yeah, lamp, I remember. So this is the serial position effect. I don't quite know why this is useful. I can't think of a specific example, but it's sort of interesting to think about. If you have a long list of words, you're more likely to remember the first and the last. If you have, I don't know, if you're taking a class, you're more likely to remember the first day's lecture and the last one that you saw. I think that applies in the same way. That's sort of the same thinking that you've studied this material more, and this is fresh in your mind and all that. So, yeah, good old Ebbinghaus. I want to reiterate, he's the one that came up with this. I have a picture of him. Hopefully that'll help you remember who it is, and you can start to apply this in your life.